1920s America was a time of economic prosperity and cultural revolution. Best iconified by jazz and prohibition, the 20s were a carefree counterpoint to the years of war experienced around the world. And most metropolitan areas in the United States and Europe partook of this untroubled lifestyle that emphasized a new technological modernity and breaks with social and artistic traditions. After 1922, the stock market increased by almost 20% annually until the crash in 1929. Over the 1920s, stocks were wildly and perhaps recklessly overpriced. This in part led to the extended period of overconfidence that included not only the market and traders, but a large quantity of average consumers, working class citizens, and small investors. The increased popularity in investing led many working class individuals with little financial acumen to purchase stocks on margin. This meant they paid only a small percentage of the value and borrowed the rest from a bank or stockbroker. There was a rapid growth in bank credit and easily acquired loans. Americans, encouraged by the market's stability and upticks, were unafraid of accruing debt. Financial overconfidence was also apparent in manufacturing industries. Overproduction led to a surplus in steel, iron, and durable goods. Companies frequently had to purge their surplus at a loss, causing share prices to suffer. There was an ongoing agricultural recession in the 1920s, due in large part to surpluses in farmland, equipment, and crops after World War I. Farmers were encouraged to take out federal loans to meet increased needs during the war. When the market rebounded post-war, they were left deeply in debt and unable to curb production. The resulting surpluses led land and agricultural prices to plummet. Farmers struggled to make enough profits to keep their businesses solvent, and federal relief was not provided. 2 months before the crash, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York raised national interest rates from 5% to 6%. This rate change was steep and unexpected, lessening investor enthusiasm. The decrease in eager investors destabilized the market and sharply reduced economic growth. The rapid expansion of the stock market over the 1920s peaked on September 3, 1929, when the Dow shot up to 381. By then, production had declined and unemployment had risen, both leading to stocks in great excess of their real value. Combined with low wages, proliferation of debt, the agriculture crisis, and an excess of bank loans that could not be liquidated, an asset bubble burst was inevitable. Stocks declined over September and October, with a big drop in stock prices starting at October 18th. Panic set in quickly. On Thursday, October 24th, a record of almost 13 million shares were traded. The market rallied moderately the next several days through the quick thinking of investment companies and bankers who attempted to stabilize the market by buying blocks of stock. But on the following Monday, the market went into a free fall. Stock prices collapsed completely on Tuesday, October 29th. Nearly 16.5 million shares were traded on the New York Stock Exchange in a single day. Over the weekend, the Dow had dropped by 25%. Stock tickers ran hours behind because of the machinery could not handle the volume of trading. Billions of dollars were lost, and thousands of investors were wiped out. Public panic, exacerbated by finance news outlets, in the days during and following the stock market crash, led to runs on banks. People wanted to withdraw their money as a personal safeguard. Investors were unable to withdraw their funds because bank officials had invested the money in the market. The result of the runs were widespread bank failures, deepening the impact of the financial situation. Stock prices continued to drop through 1932, when the Dow dropped to 41.22 89% below its peak in 1929. By 1933, almost half of American banks had failed, and unemployment rate was at 30%, 12.8 million people out of a total workforce of over 51 million. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt held presidential office from 1933 until his death in 1945, the only president in U.S. history to have been elected and inaugurated 4 times. At the onset of his presidency, Roosevelt faced the largest American crisis since the Civil War, the ongoing economic depression. Through his, at the time, radical policies, FDR helped mitigate the impact of the Great Depression and led the country towards recovery. Coined during a campaign speech, the New Deal was a series of legislative initiatives designed to bring economic relief, recovery, and reform. The New Deal measures also involved government directly in areas of social and economic life as never before seen, and as a result polarized many in the government and private sphere. Nicknamed Alphabet Soup, New Deal agencies were formed to support the agriculture sector, employ the unemployed, ensure bank deposits, regulate the stock market, and subsidize home and farm mortgages. Alabama farmers were accustomed to having rough years, but with the Depression coinciding with a severe drought, many farming families were barely surviving. Ironically, during the Depression, many laborers who had left farms for industrial or city work returned because farming was considered by many to be a good way to ride out the economic crisis. Farms were a place of gainful employment and a healthy environment. Over the 1920s, Alabama's rural population increased by over 63,000. However, in the early years of the Depression, those participating in agricultural systems, namely sharecroppers and tenant farmers, continued to live at a disadvantage as their farming landlords cut wages and benefits in an attempt to save their farms. One of President Roosevelt's first tasks with his New Deal programs was the recovery of the agricultural sector. The Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1933 was created to increase agricultural purchasing power by providing price parity payments to cotton farmers who voluntarily did not plant cotton on their land. In exchange, the program paid those farmers for the average yield of the unplanted field. This program did not help everyone. Most benefits were skewed in favor of landowners, and sharecroppers and tenant farmers relied on the goodwill of landowners to receive a share of the payout. The disparity in federal relief led many landless farm workers to found and join labor unions in the 1930s. The Tennessee Valley Authority was another program dedicated to helping Southern farmers. Its area of focus included soil conservation, reforestation, flood control, and improvement in agricultural practices and the lives of individuals living in the Tennessee River Basin. This led to the construction of dams to provide inexpensive electricity for farms and encouraged industrial development. While outcomes were generally good, the TVA and its methods were polarizing. Many individuals lost their land and communities due to dam flooding, and the business of rural electrification caused continual disputes over money and management. The Soil Conservation Service worked to prevent the spread of soil erosion. Like other programs that focused on soil conservation, there were adverse effects on small farmers. Improved soil meant increased yields and led to price decreases overall, especially where cotton was still the major cash crop. Programs that focused on modernizing farming techniques tended to increase the size of farms, but decreased the number of farms as a result. Cotton farmers in particular did not see sustained economic improvement until the United States' entrance into World War II, when textile production demanded more cotton yield. The Civilian Conservation Corps, established in 1933, allowed single men between ages 18 and 25 to enlist in work programs to improve public lands, forests, and parks. They were paid $30 per month, of which $25 was sent home for their family's use. Many of the men completed their high school education during their service and learned a broad range of skills that would translate to jobs in a post-Depression world. In Madison County, 2 companies of the CCC were tasked with building the Montesano State Park. They constructed 6 miles of roads, a public lodge, 11 cabins, a picnic area, 18 miles of foot trails, 8 miles of bridle paths, 10 trailside shelters, a horse barn, a service building, a superintendent's lodge, and a complete water and sewage system. The Works Progress Administration provided jobs to 8.5 million individuals. Wages in the program ranged from $15 to $90 per month. The program included construction projects, the Federal Arts Project, Federal Writers Project, and the Federal Theater Project, and emphasized such cultural programs as the creation of public art, documentation of local life, and the organization of community theaters. In Madison County, WPA workers recorded slave narratives from interviews from formerly enslaved individuals, transcribed local government and church records, and provided funding for and worked in the public library system, among other projects. The 1935 creation of the Social Security Act was part of a series of programs that aimed to tackle economic inequality. It established a system of old age benefits for workers, benefits for victims of industrial accidents, unemployment insurance, and aid for dependent mothers and children, persons who were blind, and persons with disabilities. The influx of federal funds in Alabama helped revitalize and restructure state relief efforts. Governor Bibb Graves created Alabama's Department of Public Welfare during this time. The New Deal itself was difficult to launch and sustain due to political opposition and setbacks, although it is difficult to deny the widespread good its program did. Ultimately, the Great Depression ended with the United States' entrance into World War II. The war effort stimulated American industries, effectively ending the decade-long Depression. President Roosevelt's alphabet soup was comprised of dozens of programs. The short-term impact of the New Deal was the economic relief of millions of Americans. In the long term, though, the New Deal greatly increased the role of the federal government in economic and social affairs of the nation, while embracing the concept of a government-regulated economy.